This is Laura Vanderkam. I'm a mother of 5, an author, journalist, and speaker.
And this is Sarah Hart-Unger. I'm a mother of 3, a practicing physician, and blogger on the side. We are 2 working parents who love our careers and our families.
Welcome to Best of Both Worlds. Here we talk about how real women manage work, family, and time for fun. From figuring out childcare to mapping out long-term career goals, we want you to get the most out of life. Welcome to Best of Both Worlds. This is Laura. This is episode 241, which is airing in mid-March of 2022. Sarah is going to be interviewing Molly Beck, who is an amazing tech entrepreneur, has wonderful thoughts on building a career and a family in that world. She is also a Best of Both Worlds listener, and we are, hoping to bring on lots of listeners as guests as they talk about how they are combining work and life. So we are very excited to have Molly on talking about her life. So speaking of life right now, work and life, Sarah, it's birthday party season in your household with all your people having birthdays together in one fell swoop.
I mean, they're not that close together, but Annabelle and Cameron are only 6 weeks apart. I mean, they're like almost 2 years apart, but you know what I'm saying. And then Genevieve is like 2 months prior to Cameron. So it just feels, and then there's holidays and stuff. So it's like December, February, April. And then by the time each birthday gets done, I'm like, oh my God, I need to like figure out the next birthday, like at that moment. And we didn't do a lot of parties during like the thick of COVID, but we're definitely back to doing them now. So as we are recording this, and by the time this airs, I'll just have happy memories of this party, hopefully. But right now I'm like, ugh, because we're doing a video game truck, which seems like it would be so easy. And it felt easy when I reserved it. But I decided that we have a lot more room to park the truck at our new house versus our old house. Like it would really kind of like clog up the whole street at our old house. So I did it for our new house, which is fine. Our new house is like several blocks from our old house. But then it occurred to me that like, number one, I have like nowhere for parents to sit. And apparently a lot of parents are coming. And like, I got a lot of people who are like, oh, I'm bringing my 2 other kids. Okay. And I'm like, okay, which is fine. I don't mind it because I like bringing my kids to things together. But so I need to like have a place for parents. I have to hope that the weather is good. And we haven't moved whatsoever. And our house is still dusty and like not pretty. And I'm like, I have to clean a bathroom. Like people are going to have to come in this house. And then I'm sort of like embarrassed by the fact that it's a completely empty, dusty house. And I don't know, like it's a lot. And now I'm just like, why didn't I do it at a venue where I could have not had to do anything? And thankfully, Annabelle has requested an ice skating party, which will be nowhere near my house. I will have to do nothing but write a check. And I'm super, super thankful.
Yay. Yeah, doing it at venues is always a great solution. Because yes, you generally just invite people and then sit back and, maybe you have to choose which pizza or something. But other than that, you don't have to do much. We are in the family birthday desert right now. As much as you can in a family of 7 people have a birthday desert. But between Alex in January and then Jasper in May, we don't have anything. Well, I guess Max the dog is theoretically February, but I don't feel the need to throw him a party. So we're in the no zone right now. But Henry, by the time this airs, will have actually gone to his first friend birthday party. He was invited to something. It's so cute. Really just kind of tickled about that idea that he has his own friends. Alex turned 7 right at the sort of peak of Omicron. And so I kind of assumed a lot of parents weren't going to want to go to like a bouncy house type place at the time. So we wound up having an outdoor party at a local playground. And it was actually really cool. Like we just, had a handful of kids. It was like 6 other kids come. It was cold, but it wasn't, so that we only did an hour because it was cold. And we did it late in the afternoon on Martin Luther King Day, that Monday, because, it was the long weekend. And so everyone was so happy to have something to bring their kid to by late afternoon on Monday that people were just like, oh, yes, they're so glad to get out of the house. We got hot chocolate from Dunkin' Donuts and the Munchkins, the little donuts, and people loved it, because everyone loves donuts and hot chocolate. And yeah, it was really cool. So I would say that was one of our maybe better birthday parties, and it was pretty low key, but just in terms of how much fun the kids had, it was right up there.
I love the fact that it was that short because then you basically, it's not like you need a pavilion or like a place to sit or feel like you're hosting people for this extended thing. You're just like, you're taking your kid to the playground like you normally would. You're going to stand around or sit wherever. And we have donuts and hot chocolate. So that is beautiful. That was just good job.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I don't know that we could have gotten away with that on like a beautiful May day, right? Like the reason it worked is it was a January Monday. And so nobody else was at the playground. Like we had the place to ourselves, except for like two teenage boys who were playing on the basketball court. Like, I mean, that was it, right? And so it kind of was like our own party venue, and I could just have the entire picnic area without making a reservation or anything. So it was so low key because of that. But yeah, we did the video game truck thing once for Sam. That was fun. And it's a pretty easy birthday party idea too, as long as you have somewhere flat for the the truck to park, which turns out to be harder than one might imagine
Not in Florida.
well, this part of Pennsylvania, you need a flat spot. And my driveway was not flat. And so we parked in the road. But of course, then I had to make sure like none of my neighbors were going to park in the road there, right? So I'm like defending 5 spots. Anyway, it was kind of funny. Party favors. What are your thoughts on party favors?
I just hate them. I agree. I mean, the party favors that I've gotten that have been good have been like the kid makes a t-shirt during the party and that's your favor. Love that. But I don't really feel like I have the energy to like do tie-dye or anything. I mean, I guess I could. That wouldn't be that hard, but ugh. I sound terrible. A very memorable favor was a party we went to where they gave this like globe that like repeated. It was some toy. It was probably, she said she got them like at Ross at some crazy deep discounted rate. It was probably a toy that would have been $25 or something, but she said she got them for like $8 each. And I may try to go to that route and like see if I can find some. We have like a Tuesday morning and a Ross near us, as well as the good old dollar store. So Josh said he will take Cameron on Saturday. The party's on Sunday, and they'll look for like one random, deeply discounted thing because I just hate the little bags of crap. Like they bother me. And we did a no gifts this year. I know this. I got this a little bit from my sister-in-law. So her kids have done no gifts for years, just from a like we have enough kind of standpoint. And also just because like a lot of times you get stuff that's just like really like you mentioned that when kids get older, they just exchange gift cards, which that wouldn't really bother me. But when you get just like a lot of random plastic crap that plugs in and like how much of that stuff do you really need or use? We certainly don't need or use anymore, given that we have 3 kids and like have amassed plenty. And honestly, what Cameron really wants to do with his time is like play the Nintendo. So anyway, we just said no gifts. And in order to like make the kids feel better about that, we told them we will get them like a sizable Target gift card so that throughout the year, as they see things that they want that maybe they would have like gotten for their birthday, they can purchase it themselves. And that way they're choosing like things that they're really excited about rather than being showered with a whole bunch of random stuff at once. And I'm super happy because I know I'm weird, but I get like depressed and distressed when my kids have a pile of birthday gifts. I don't know.
Okay. I've made my peace with a lot of clutter. I don't know. I agree with you on the party favor, though. I think it's best if it's either something that's like intrinsic to the party itself. So like Ruth had a, paint your own pottery party, which obviously your thing was the pottery that you painted. That's a pretty straightforward thing that's associated with it. But I think your choice, if you're looking at like little bag of cheap crap, like you're better off like going up a few dollars and getting something actually cool. Like, buy everyone a copy of the kid's favorite book or a little Lego set or something, but an actual thing that would be good instead of saving a few dollars and getting something that nobody wants. So I think that's, maybe something you would try to decide to go up a few dollar amount like your friend did who got the cool toy for everyone. That sounds like maybe the way to go on something like that. But anyway, we'll be we'll keep you posted on how the birthday parties went down. And now we'll be talking to Molly.
Well, I am so excited today to introduce our guest, Molly Beck. Molly has been a supporter and listener of the show for quite some time, and it is only natural that she come to join us today to tell us all about how she dominates. She is the CEO of Messy FM and has had a really fascinating career journey and has so much great stuff to share. So go ahead, Molly, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sarah, I am just thrilled to be on this podcast today. I really applaud what you and Laura have done. I feel like that for me, it's been helpful and it's been tangible and it's really made me feel less alone in this journey of motherhood. So I am just thrilled to be here today. Okay, my name is Molly Beck. I live outside of Orlando, Florida, and I live in Orlando, Florida with my husband, Colin, who is an attorney for a large hospitality company, and we have a 4-year-old boy, a 2-year-old boy, and I am 6 months pregnant with a third baby boy. So we are just a boy family, and of course we have our little dog Blueberry, who's just the best part of the family. And from Orlando, Florida, I run my B2B software company, Messy FM. We build internal podcast solutions for enterprises, primarily focused on the university, government, and Fortune 1000 market. Messy is a remote company, so we have employees across the US, in Canada, and in India. And it's really a joy to be able to work with lots of customers, lots of teammates in this wonderful new hybrid world from the Sunshine State.
Yes. Well, this is a sunshine to sunshine conversation. Now, for those of our listeners who are like me and doctors and don't use words like B2B, what does that mean? Because I know you pivoted at some point and I had to like do some abbreviation learning.
What a great question. I'm so happy you asked. Okay. So there's two types of businesses largely. One is called B2B. The B's stand for business to business. And one is called B2C, and that would be business to consumer. So the majority of the products that you and I buy every day, toilet paper, lipstick, Starbucks, are B2C products. We're buying them directly from the business for us to use as consumers in our families. However, there's also a large percentage of services, accounting software, if you wanted to buy that same toilet paper, but in mass for all of your locations, that are business to business decisions. So someone at the business is making the decision, typically through what's called the procurement department, to purchase it for the business. So Messy FM, to answer your question, started out as a B2C company, which means that we created podcasting infrastructure for individuals. I got really excited about that market because I was someone that had really benefited from B2C web-based services as a blogger. I was able to start a blog without knowing any sort of back-end coding because a service called WordPress existed. Could just jump on, it was all web-based, create my blog, didn't have to learn any code. And when I saw podcasting starting to replace blogging, I got really excited about creating what at the time I was calling the WordPress of podcasts, making it really easy for anyone to jump into the space. B2C is a very interesting space because what typically happens, and what happened to Messy, is we had tons of users, but those users typically don't pay too much money. So, a ton of users that are either on freemium models, which means they start off as free users and maybe you can upsell them to 5, 10. I think our highest package was $49 a month, is a much different experience with instead of the B2B space. So the B2C space and podcast hosting became crowded. Most people are familiar with Anchor. We competed directly with Anchor for quite some time. This is just such a side note, but something that happened in my life that was very impactful is I was like 8 months pregnant with my second son. We were competing directly with Anchor. I couldn't sleep because I had pregnancy insomnia. And I was on the West Coast in California and I was refreshing Twitter. And I really think I was the first person to see the tweet from Spotify. It went out at 6 a.m. East Coast time saying they had acquired Anchor. And that was a real turning point in my business because it did two things at once. One, it validated I was in the right space. It sounds silly to say now, but just a couple of years ago, the idea that podcasting would become as mainstream as music listening was not really there. You were a podcaster before that. So it was validating that I was in the right space, but it was also very stressful because I sort of instantly realized that these wars Anchor and I were having, sort of like lowering prices, now they would have the backing of Spotify so they could make their service free, which is exactly what happened. And so I remember I saw that tweet, and by like 3:08 a.m. Pacific time, I'd emailed my board. I'd texted my parents because they're on Boston, so it was East Coast. I was like, everyone, this is happening. We have to really think about this. Anyways, jumping ahead, we pivoted to the B2B space, which means that we primarily sell now into businesses. And what a joy that has been. I really think most people, if you're like me and you're starting a business, you instantly think, what's a service I can use? And then you build for yourself. But I would encourage anyone listening, if you're thinking about starting a product, think about that B2B space. Think about selling it to businesses. A couple of benefits here. One, right off the bat, price point. You can charge a lot more for businesses, and you also have a lot of upsell opportunities in terms of the size and scale of the organizations that you're selling into, how you're pricing your services. Another really big one, especially if you're a small company and you're doing some of the customer service yourself, as I do, is that if you're selling primarily into businesses, you're mostly getting customer service questions during the business day. Very rarely are people working on their podcast for work on like a Saturday afternoon. And we have a 24-hour guaranteed response time on all of Messy's things for individuals and businesses. And that's a different experience if you're getting lots of emails over the weekend of people working on their side hustle podcasts first during the week. So if you have an idea, if you are listening to this podcast and you want to start a business, but you don't have an idea, here's what I really think you should do. One, there's 3 questions you should ask yourself. 1, what businesses do I love? What products do I use as a consumer? 2, how could technology make those experiences better? And 3, what businesses would buy them? So Sarah, I was actually thinking, I came up with that framework this morning.
I was like, I'm going to create a planner that businesses buy for their employees.
Yes. Okay. So Sarah, I actually had an idea for you because I was thinking about, so Sarah obviously loves planners. We all know that. And then I was thinking, okay, so right now her planners are manual. And so what's technology that would help that? What if they were like living some sort of software in the computer? And then I was thinking, what's like a narrow thing she could sell into? Obviously, she's a doctor in the doctor space. I have no idea what Epic is. I've never even researched it, but I know you always talk about Epic on your blog. So like, what if you did some sort of like browser extension for Epic that made it so people could do like planning for their personal, you're laughing because I don't know if that's a bad idea, but like following that train of what do you love? How could technology improve it? And what businesses would buy it can help you think of a really nice B2B business.
I think Epic may hire you as a consultant now. They're like, wow, we never thought of getting into the physician wellness space, but here's our angle. We're going to hire Molly and Sarah, and we're going to go for it. And all of a sudden, charting will go from being a chore to a pleasurable part of your day where you just know, oh my goodness, this is so funny. And I love it. I love it. I love it, Molly. You are full of amazing ideas, and this is already a lot of fun. Okay. So we're going to pivot. I love your business story. I think that's so fascinating. And I think you did mention in your explanation that I think women especially are intimidated to go into the B2B space, but I can see why a lot of us should just, if that's what you're interested in doing, just get over your fears and try it, because I absolutely hear the benefits and how they've worked out so well for you. So now you have this blossoming career, and so does your husband. And you have said that you have a 50-50 split in your household with your 2 boys, young boys, and boy to be. I guess that one's more of a you split because it's hard for him to help as much with that one so far. But tell me about this split. Have you talked about it? What processes do you have in order? I want to hear the logistics here.
Absolutely. Well, and I also actually we sort of have a solution that we've worked out for how I carry the baby for 9 months, but we'll get to that in a second. So Colin and I we split childcare 50-50, truly 50-50. And the way that we do it is the night before, we look at the schedule, like whatever's happening in the day. And I would say our days are fairly predictable. We both work largely 9 to 5. We don't do a ton of work on the weekends. Our kids are in some activities, but they're somewhat planned. And we do have 40 hours a week of childcare, combination of nanny and preschool. So with that in mind, I look at the schedule for the next day, and then I could already tell you off the top of my head that I know that during the week, we have about 5.5 hours each weekday that's not covered by childcare. And on the weekends, we have 13 hours. So dividing that in half, we each do like 2.75 hours on the weekdays, and then we each do 6.5 hours on the weekends. And we just come up with a schedule. Typically, how it breaks down is I usually do the morning shift and like an hour after work, and then Colin does after work till they go to bed. That's like on a typical day. And then on the weekends, I still am sort of the early riser. So I typically take morning straight through till around like 1:30, depending on what time they get up. And then he does that till bedtime. Something that's really important to note is that it doesn't mean that we're not hanging out as a family. We often do family activities on the weekends. Kids are in sports. We're big like NASCAR monster truck people. So we go to that on the weekends a lot. So we're still doing stuff as a family, but the person who's on, they're like the primary parent. So if we're at the monster truck rally in the morning and one of the kids wants a snack or has to go to the bathroom, it would be me that's jumping up and doing it because I would be on the morning shift. If it's the afternoon, we're lazing about the house, the kids are hungry, these kids always want snacks, then it would be Colin that would jump up and do it. So it doesn't mean that we're not together as a family, but somebody is on and somebody is sort of more off as you can be. But then they also are off. If it's the afternoon and it's Colin's time and I'm very social, I like to hang out with my friends a lot. And if I want to do that, that's fine. Like I can either hop on a Zoom, sometimes I do a little messy work, like just doing some stuff. And that's totally fine. Colin usually works out in the morning. He's more of a runner than I am. And we love it. I really enjoy it. You know how we started it actually is I think that the hardest part of parenting for us was when we had one child under a year old, not a ton of activities you could really take them to. Like, yes, you can take a 6-month-old to the zoo, but like, who's enjoying that there? Not in our family, nobody was enjoying it. So then you have like 2 adults and 1 kid and not a lot to do. So we started splitting up the weekends, somebody being more on and off. And then as our family grew, as the kids frankly became more interesting and like had things to do, we just kept with the schedule. And the other thing I want to tell you was the 9-month thing. So something that we do actually is after I'm done like breastfeeding, then Colin does do the next 9 months of wake ups in the nighttime. And that's like sort of, is it a perfect science? Like, no, occasionally I'll get up in the middle of the night. But if the baby can take a bottle, then Colin does the night wake ups for about 9 months after. And then hopefully by that point, the kids are sleeping through the night.
Oh, that's so funny. For us, it was more like the minute that I wasn't feeding them at night, they were like, okay, fine, there's nothing to do. I'll just sleep. So that would not have worked for us. But that's so interesting. I want to hear a tiny bit. Well, we have to take a quick break. And as soon as we're back, I want to ask you a tiny bit more about your weekday split. And maybe we can do like a day in the life. All right, we are back and we are hearing logistics from Molly, especially how she splits things with her husband very thoughtfully. And I want to hear, you mentioned kind of that you're more the morning parent and you kind of really split those childcare free hours very equally. So I want to hear a day in the life at your house.
I wake up. The angels sing. No, I'm just kidding. I try to get up around 6. My kids usually, they have one of those traffic lights in their rooms that goes from like red to green when they can get up. So I know my 4-year-old does get up a little bit before then. I can hear him in the room, but my 2-year-old's still asleep. They share a room. And my 4-year-old, when he gets up, he has to get dressed and make his bed. And then when his traffic light switches colors, he usually calls for me. By that point, I'm usually dressed myself. I find it very frustrating to try to like do my hair, do my makeup, and get dressed with kids running around. So I try to avoid that as much as possible. So then he and we trumps downstairs. Sometimes the 2-year-old is up. Then sometimes they're not. Colin's usually still asleep with the dog. Colin and the dog are sleepers. Come downstairs, have a little breakfast. In terms of breakfast, I don't usually eat breakfast, but the kids are, right now they're on like a dinosaur eggs oatmeal kick, which honestly, that stuff isn't bad if you're like looking for a little snackaroo. Cereal, we have some fruit, yada, yada, yada. The kids usually watch some TV. They're really into number blocks right now, which is, if you watched it as an adult, you'd be like, why do my kids like it? But my kids really like it. So they watch number blocks. That probably lasts like a half hour-ish. And then we tromps back upstairs. It's like 7:15, 7:30. We wake up Colin, Colin is sometimes already awake, but the kids really like to wake him up. So sometimes he gets back in bed and pretends to be asleep. And then we kind of that's like the most stressful part of the day is like 7:30 to like 7:45. It's still my time, but like the kids are running around. They're already dressed usually at that point. Like the 4-year-old was already dressed when we went downstairs and the 2-year-old is like in various stages of it. And like nobody has like a defined activity, but around 8 o'clock, defined activities start. People need to get shoes on out the door, and the time switches over to Colin. Colin is usually the one that brings them to school in the morning. And okay, so then it's my time. So now it's like 8:15. I am definitely walking out the door, going to the coffee shop. Love my little routine in the morning. I always run into people I know, people to chat with. It was really important to me to live in a community where I think I had like a number even. I think I wanted to know 15% of people in the coffee shop every day when I moved here. Like I just really wanted that community feel. And I do feel like I run into people to chat with, which I really like. So go to the coffee shop, get my coffee, come back home. If I meandered a bit, it's maybe around 9. If I like every neighborhood right now, everybody's talking about real estate gossip. So if I got some like very hot real estate gossip, then I was chatting with someone, I'm like texting Colin, oh my gosh, you'll never believe who's thinking of listing, yada, yada, yada. Okay, then from 9 to 5, it's just a normal day. I am usually on Slacks with internal teams. I'm usually on demos with customers. I do a lot of customer onboarding myself. We do some creator training for some of our bigger accounts. Messy's venture back, which means we took outside capital to build our initial product. So occasionally I interface with investors, although we're not currently raising. And that's just like my 9 to 5. The kids are usually in and out because we have a nanny. The 2-year-old's neither of the kids are in full-time school, but all of their schools are just the morning. So I pop out, chat with them. Honestly, on occasion, they do a lot of crafts. I love crafts. If they're ever doing a craft that I really like, I might hop in just for like 5 or 10 minutes just to remind them who the craft master is in the house. Not me. No, anyways. Okay, so then 5 o'clock, the day ends. We say goodbye to our nanny. Something that's important to note is our nanny is actually a family member, but we treat her like we would someone that was not a family member. Like we keep very defined hours. She's paid on the books, all of the things that someone that was not a family member would get. And we try to be really respectful of her time. And the truth is she's a really good friend of mine. Like, even if we weren't sister-in-law, she would be a good friend of mine. But I still try to really keep that boundary during the day. So 5 o'clock, we say goodbye to her. And then kids and I hang out. I usually start making dinner. I really love pasta. And my kids really love pasta. So we do pasta a lot of nights. Little veggies, the whole shenanigans. And at 6 o'clock, Colin takes over. I usually hang out for a little bit. That's when I read the paper. We'll talk about that later. That's when I read my paper and sit on the couch. And kids are running around eating. And then usually at 7 o'clock, I start having more Zooms, and they're usually more social. So I meet with a creative entrepreneurship club twice a week, part of a life group at church. Usually just like to pull get-togethers with friends. So I usually do some social stuff online from 7 to 9. For 9 o'clock, kids are down. Colin and I hang out, chill, watch some House Hunters. It's a really fun game. One person chooses what House Hunters to go to, and the other person has to see if they can figure out what city they're in before they say it. It's pretty crazy, actually. And then go to bed. Yeah, that would be a day.
I love it. And so does your husband kind of take over the bedtime duties, since that's technically his hours?
Yeah, don't show me a bedtime book. I'm not interested. No, I'm just kidding. I do bedtime, I probably do bedtime twice a week, but most of the time it's him.
Awesome. Oh, well, that sounds lovely. It sounds like you two have a lot of fun together and with your kids. And what a cool but unusual setup with an employed family member. I have some fantasies of maybe one day, well, they're going to hear it on this podcast. I don't think they listen, but hiring one of my nieces or nephews to be kind of a vacation au pair. Everybody wins. They go on a free trip. They hang out with their cousins. I pay them. I think it could be kind of fun. So yeah, I think that's really cool that you do that. Okay, so I wanted you to talk a little bit about not specifically your company, but the Techstars program, and kind of the chance you took when your kids were young that was pretty outside of the box.
Mm-hmm.
Just, I don't know, so listeners can kind of hear what's possible and how it worked out for you.
Sure. So Techstars is an accelerator program, which means that they take a very small number of startups each year. They run them through a 4-month-long program that's a mix of mentorship, fundraising, everything to get your company into a really great space. And they also invest into your company. And so then the idea is that they take startups that they think are going to be on a great trajectory and help them grow even more. Techstars is very competitive to get into. And I had applied in 2017 when Messy was still just an idea. I applied in 2018 when Messy was just coming out of beta. And then I didn't even get an interview either time. However, as part of the application, you have to submit a video. And the first time I submitted a video, you can it's hosted on my private YouTube. I saw that it was only watched 3 times, but then the second time the application video was viewed 50 times. So I was like, oh, at least I think I'm getting better because they're passing it around. So I was just excited that this application video was viewed 50 times, and I just got the form rejection letter. Okay, so fast forward, now it's 2019. I have a 1-year-old and I am pregnant with my second son, and we are living in Los Angeles, California. So we had just moved cross country. My first son was born in New York. I'm about to give birth to my second son in Los Angeles. My husband works for a different hospitality-ish company out there. And I get an email from Techstars in January from the managing director asking me to apply again. And one of my traits is I'm definitely a Gretchen Rubin rebel, and I don't like it when people tell me. I don't like when people tell me what to do.
You wanted this program until they wanted you.
100%. And also, the logistics of my life just made absolutely no sense. I was super pregnant. I had this 1-year-old. Another reality of my life at that time is that Messy was not making very much money. Remember, we had all those users, but no real money. We were still B2C. So I didn't have regular childcare at all. And we also lived in LA where we knew no one. So we didn't even have family. So I was doing the bulk of the childcare. And I was working on Messy really early in the morning, which actually worked out well because on the East Coast time, it was 9 to 12. So it was early in the morning, 6 to 9 my time. So I could do work before Colin left for work. But I don't know how other people feel being pregnant, but I just it wasn't in the right headspace. So I get this email, totally blow it off a million times. He keeps emailing. He's I really think you should apply this year. I'm rah, please, no. Anyways, long story short, my baby comes early. My baby was supposed to come the end of April, and it came on April Fool's Day. And so the application deadline for Techstars was April 7th. So give birth to the baby. Thank God everything is great, and then get out of the hospital. And I just keep thinking about this Techstars application. And I'm I don't know, why do I keep thinking about it? But then I always think of that quote that's you should dance with the one that wants you. And I was the fact that Techstars is emailing me is kind of interesting. So anyways, decide one night, the Techstars application is due April 7th. Decide on April 6th, I'm going to do this application. So I do the whole thing, and then I realize, oh my gosh, I have to do another video. Remember my videos that were only being viewed a couple times? However, I just had this epidural. My face is so puffy. I didn't look my best. I didn't look my worst, actually.
You had just given birth. Let's we all know. Most people listening to this podcast are not my finest.
100%. Exactly. But I go in the corner of our bedroom, and I'm talking really low in the video because the baby's sleeping, and I just do this quick video and I send it off. Anyways, end up getting email inviting me to interview in Philadelphia. And I don't know what other people's marriages are but I hadn't really told Colin all of the details about this Techstars thing. I always think, why worry people until things are becoming more serious? I was oh, isn't it fun? Techstars seems like they want me. Oh yeah, I applied. We'll see what happens. Blah, blah, blah. But then it suddenly becomes really real that I have to, if I want to continue the process, I have to fly to Philadelphia and interview. And at this point, the interview date, I would have a 5-week-old. And then I still have a 1-year-old that, remember, we have no regular childcare. So that's a whole nother wrinkle of who would watch the 1-year-old while I'm gone. I didn't think I was up. I knew the 5-week-old would have to come with me because I was still breastfeeding, but I knew the 1-year-old couldn't. It would just be too crazy. So do a little thinking, and I called my parents, and I sort of told them the whole story, and they're Tech, what? The stars? Blah, blah, blah. And my dad, this is just a part of the story that I think is really important, is I'm very lucky that I have a community that really believes in my ideas. And my dad, who's not, I would say, a super baby person, volunteers to fly from Boston to Philly, meet me at the interview, and then watch the baby during the interview. And it was just such a kind offer. And so once my dad offered that, I was like, I think I should do this. Like, I think people are rallying around me. And so fly to Techstars. We're on this cross country flight. The baby is crying the whole time. We're in the middle seat. I'm like trying to breastfeed. The night before, my dad's like flight, I forget the details, but whatever it was, my dad didn't get in until really late. I was there. The baby was crying the whole night. I was like still working because to interview at Techstars, you do a panel interview with about 40 people, and you have to do this whole like pitch, and you see the other startups while you're there. Mine was at the Comcast Technology Center, which is like this big fancy building. Keep in mind, I've been working for myself for the past 2 years, literally out of a baby's bedroom. And so I go to Dry Bar, like, God bless Dry Bar. I get my first blowout since I've had the baby. I'm like, I'm a new person. Give the baby to my dad, go into the interview. I have this picture that I just totally treasure of my dad pushing the baby around the corner of the Techstars Center while I go inside. Because keep in mind, the baby wasn't taking a bottle. So my dad's really, his only option to watch him is to like push him in the stroller, like for however long it took. So go in, have the interview, end up getting into Techstars. And then I realized I have to tell, like, they don't tell you right away that you get into Techstars, but like, I felt like the interview went well. My dad and I had a chili, what is it called? Philly cheesesteak. And then I flew back, but the Techstars program is in Philly and I'm in California. And so I get into Techstars, and that's when I realized I have to have a really serious conversation with Colin about how we're going to make this work. I am obviously so not an expert on marriage, but in my marriage, one thing that we have always sort of thought is the person that really feels the strongest should get their way. So, you know, if we're getting takeout and I kind of was in the mood for pizza, but Colin really wants Taco Tuesday, he wants it more, he should get it that night. And this is one of those situations where Colin wasn't thrilled about the idea of both of the kids and me moving to Philly for 4 months. He had to stay in Los Angeles because that's where his job was. This is pre-COVID. You did not get permission to work remotely. He would have to fly like maybe every third weekend to visit us and be away from his kids and me for 4 months for an idea. The company of Messy Now with employees and real customers and all this stuff is not what we were back then. We were a ton of users not paying in a space where Spotify had just bought our biggest competitor. Like it was
tenuous and uncertain.
So tenuous and uncertain. And we didn't have childcare in Philly and we had never had regular childcare. So I didn't even really know about, was I supposed to be looking for daycare? Was I supposed to be looking for nannies? But I just told Colin, like, hey, I'm going to do this. And I just did it. And he was helpful. I think if you're not yet with a partner, I do think it's helpful to marry someone that's just easygoing. I just think it makes your life easier. So anyways, the kids and I fly to Philly. I found a nanny agency. They assigned us a nanny. I met her on Sunday. And then Monday, she started watching my kids full time. We rented an apartment across the street from the Comcast Technology Center. So I would from lunch every day and feed the baby and then go back. And Techstars like changed the trajectory of my business. Comcast ended up investing in the business. They became a customer. We ended up pivoting to B2B. I felt like a real entrepreneur. That's when I like felt like I wasn't just like toiling away myself. Like I had this community around myself. And it was one of the best things I ever did for myself. And in our family, everybody gets to follow their dreams. And sometimes that is even the mom. So that was our journey.
What a cool story at a crazy time. And obviously it ended up like paying off amazingly. So your gut instinct must have really kind of told you to move on that. And you were totally right. So I love that you shared that. And speaking of kind of dreams and instincts, my last question before we get to the level of the week is goal setting. You mentioned a couple of goals and how I'm curious, like, do you do it quarterly or do you follow the best of both worlds or best laid plans kind of methods? Or are you more just a yearly how did you create these big dreams and goals?
Okay, Sarah, this is a great question. I cannot believe I just forgot to tell the craziest part of this Techstars story. Okay, so we get to Techstars. The second week of the program, I'm sitting in a meeting, like with my leg tucked under my butt. My leg falls asleep and I tried to walk on it and I broke my leg. So I was on crutches for this program with these kids. I'll never forget calling Colin from the ER. I did a conference call with my mom and Colin. And I'm like, okay, here's the deal. They just did an x-ray. It's like not looking good. That was honestly, all joking aside, the lowest I've ever felt as an adult was I got home from the ER at like 1 a.m. I had to pay the babysitter a ton of overtime to stay that late because I broke it at the end of the day, which like is expensive. We all know babysitting is expensive. I was watching my pennies. So I had to pay all this overtime and my leg was broken. I was on these crutches. We were living in an apartment building. I had this huge fear already that there was going to be a fire. I was going to be able to get the kids out. And now I'm on crutches and I have these kids. And it was a very stressful time. And I just wanted to share the advice. Something that really helped me is that particular night when I was so stressed, I didn't want to take any serious drugs because I was the only caregiver. And I also didn't have Tylenol in my apartment because we had just got there. And so I was walking in and I had this horrible worry that there was going to be a fire. I had this broken leg and how did I get the kids out? So I stopped and talked to the doorman at the front desk. And I was just like, hey, I just moved in. Obviously they think my leg is broken because I had to go to the orthopedic like the next day. So I'm like, they think I didn't have health insurance in Philly. It was a whole nightmare. So I'm like, here is the situation. I'm like, just FYI, we live on the 8th floor. I didn't ask him, hey, if there's a fire, like come and grab us, but just like telling somebody just the situation. And I think that works in almost every situation. If there is always people who are paid professionals in almost any situation that will help you. If you were flying across the country with a baby, there are flight attendants that can help you if things start going really south with the baby. If you are alone, like sometimes I'm about to have 3 kids really close in age. And the first time you do anything when I did it with 2 kids, now I'll do it with 3 kids, it will be nerve-wracking to go out alone with me and just the 3 of them. But I'll think about like, okay, what are other people around the situation that like, I always thought like, oh, if I pass out when I'm alone with the kids, if I feel lightheaded, I'll just walk into a Starbucks and then there are paid people there that will like have to deal with me. So just like always look for paid people that like, they can kind of help you if you're stressed. So anyways, sorry, that was the Techstars story. Let me tell you about my goals. Okay. There are 2 things are true at once. 1, I love goals and I am a big goal setter. And 2, I have not done so hot on my 2022 goals. Just laying it out there. My goals for this year, my 3 big ones that were personal, not messy related, would be to meditate every day, to document my experience of motherhood better, and to do 100 thought leadership pieces. So I'm actually doing okay in the thought leadership. I'm like on target for that. The meditation every day is happening a few times a week, and the motherhood documenting has a bit fallen off. But that's okay. That's part of the process.
That's okay. You could just play them this episode and that will count.
And the other thing I want to say about sort of goal setting is I also think it's okay. You can always just reset the goals. Like, sometimes it's fun to look back. And also there was stuff that I did in 2021 that wasn't on the goals list that I was like, oh, wow, I started running. Like I ran a mile. I never thought I would run a mile in my whole life. Like that wasn't on the list, but some other things maybe just tinge. Where did that goals list go?
I love making goals lists, but I fully agree. You can always hit that reset button. You can always start over. You can always cross goals off the list because, hey, maybe you learned something about yourself and that's just as productive sometimes that like, I thought I wanted to do this. Actually, I don't. Moving on. So I fully applaud that. And yeah, documenting. I mean, yeah. Maybe it's overrated. There's always the photo roll in your phone, right?
There's always the iPhone share album. I had like a little Google spreadsheet where I was like writing. My goal was to every day start the experience with like, I felt like blah, 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 something about motherhood. And for like 3 days in a row, the entry was, I felt cranky till I ate chocolate. And I'm like, who is this for? Like, I can't even show this to my kids.
So funny. All right. Well, it is time for Love of the Week. And we know, okay, so full disclosure, Molly's one is our Patreon group, and she shared some of her loves of the week because she wanted to see which might be the best one for this episode. And I deemed her the world's most prepared guest we've ever had. So I think you should share at least the book you mentioned and then whatever else you would like to mention from that list for your loves of the week.
Great. Okay, so let's do some book recommendations. I actually have a couple that I think might be helpful. So first book recommendation is I wanted to give a book recommendation for people that I love being an entrepreneur, obviously. It's something I feel very passionate about. It has been really transformational in my life. And so I recommend, if you have an idea for a business, read this book. It's called Business Minded. It came out earlier this year by someone named Carly Riordan. And I just wanted to throw out there that sometimes when women write business books, the reviews come back that like, oh, they're making business too easy, or like it's not as complicated as it could be. And to me, that is a massive form of gatekeeping. And if someone tells you that business is too hard, two things are happening. One, they want you to feel like they're super smart, which is why they're saying that it's hard. Or two, they're nervous that if you get into business, you will crush them. Business is not hard. And I really feel passionate that if you have an idea for a business, you can do it. Spend a couple minutes every day working on your business. In like the next 5 weeks, you'll have spent 20 hours, you'll have outlined it, and then just start doing things. You don't have to spend a lot of money. You don't have to like announce it to the whole world. You don't have to leave that day job. I think having control over your business is wonderful for your mental health. Okay, so that's the business recommendation. Other one, for people that are interested in the B2B space, there's this book called The Startup Goldmine. It's by someone named Neil. And it's, the subtitle is like how large companies can grow and fund your business. And it's just about how businesses can work with like large established companies in order to become both customers and funders. The book was very helpful to me. Then finally, a book about middle children. So I am not a middle child. I'm the oldest, but I'm about to have a middle child because I'm making my 2-year-old a middle child. So I was trying to find a book that would be about my sweet little guy. And I found this book called The Secret Power of Middle Children. If you are a middle child, if you love a middle child, if you have a middle child, if you're partnered with a middle child, this is the book for you. Man, you will read this book and you will want to be a middle child. Middle children are like the best combination of like the firstborn and how they tend to be more driven, and the lastborn and how they tend to be more social. Middles like run this great path, and it sounds like it's an envious role to be in the family. So that's The Secret Power of Middle Children.
Love it. Those are excellent recommendations. I don't have any recommendations to compete with that, but since you had so many of them, maybe I don't have to. Okay, I will mention one that was brought up, and I don't know if I've used this before, but you know what? Who cares? So when we were having this discussion yesterday of everybody's loves of the week, people came up with subscription services that they use and love, and I have 3, so I'm going to give that theme. One is I get masks on subscription. Like, I'm hoping I don't have to do that forever. I would really like to stop getting them, but right now it's very easy. And like, we always have disposable masks laying around, which is kind of, I've given up on the cloth to some extent because I don't know, it's just easier. So that's one. Mine is from Armbrust American, which is like an American-made mask company, and they fit my face. So that's one. Number 2 is an old podcast sponsor that hasn't been a sponsor for like 3 years. So this is non-sponsor, but I still get the Lola tampon subscription, and never buying tampons is the best, and they're really good tampons. So there you go. And then the third one is I get the Allure Beauty Box, and I got that recommendation from Anne Bogle. And it just comes with sample size products and a couple of full size products every month. And you get to try a lot of things. And my oldest kid is already interested in them. And so sometimes I will give casts off to her and it makes her day. So it's really fun.
That is awesome. You know what? I used to be a Lola subscriber too before I got pregnant. I obviously paused it, but it's really nice to have them come. I feel like they're very high quality. Yeah, that's a good Lola recommendation.
And it's like never something you want to go out and have to buy last minute. Like the world. So yes, maybe we can sponsor them again. Anyway, thank you so much for being on the show, Molly. You were wonderful. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Thank you so much for having me on. You can always find me at MS Molly Beck, Miss Molly Beck, on any social platform. If you like Day in the Lives, I actually do a lot of Day in the Lives on my Instagram platform. And if you're interested in networking, I also wrote a book called Reach Out that you can find wherever books are sold. And if you're interested in starting an internal podcast at your company, you can go to Messy, MESSY.FM. It's called Messy because the future of audio is authentic and transparent, and internal comms don't have to be boring. They can be really about the leaders. Oh, and of course, you can always email me, Molly@Messy.fm. My whole book is about emailing strangers, so don't hesitate.
I love it. Thank you so much, Molly.
Well, that was amazing. Molly has tons of energy and enthusiasm for life and work, and we are so glad she was willing to talk with us about that. Our question today comes from somebody who also has many small children. So, this is from someone who is looking to get school aged and baby children ready and out the door in the morning without having to get up insanely early. So, the listener says that her daughters attend a private school and her baby boy will also be enrolled in their childcare program. So, the good news is it will be one stop drop off for her husband, who is doing the morning run, and she does the afternoon pickup. She said the last time we had an infant, the oldest was a toddler, so it didn't matter so much what time we dropped them off, but she can't have her girls, now that they are in school, be tardy. The girls can dress themselves, being school aged, but still need a lot of prompting to put shoes on, brush teeth, get backpacks, put on coats. This listener is already doing things like packing lunches the night before and everything else she can possibly do to make mornings go more smoothly, but it is still a flurry of gentle and then not so gentle nudging to get them out the door. Her husband's an engineer. She's an attorney. We're both going to be busy when she returns to work. She's on maternity leave and getting ready for the childcare runs coming up soon. So, what do we recommend? Sarah?
Okay, so just to set the scene of how long it takes for us, we wake the kids up at around 6:45 to 6:50, although today it was 7 because I was being very lazy, and we leave at 7:35. And today went fine, so I guess 35 minutes is enough from wake up to out the door. One thing that helps us is the older kids are expected to pretty much do themselves. And the only thing that has helped to keep them on track, other than a lot of nagging, has been music as prompts. And in fact, this morning, I was like, Cameron, start putting it. He's like, no, mom, the 10-minute song didn't come on yet. And then like it came on 2 seconds later and he like went to work. He knew like that's the countdown and you have to be ready. We've also had like discussions where it's like, if you're not ready and the song stops, which that's the cue to leave, like you will lose video game time. So there's some stakes like tied to things and they take it fairly seriously. So yeah, having the big kids be as self-sufficient as possible. And we do have the clothes kind of set up. We have them downstairs currently. Our new house is going to be all one floor. So I don't know. We might change things up. But for now, the clothes are downstairs to make things really easy to change. And our nanny is very nice. And she sets out their like uniform outfit the day before. So there's just no thought that goes into them putting on their clothes. And one other thing I will note is that maybe there needs to be a slightly earlier bedtime that would facilitate an earlier wake up for the baby. Because it sounds like the baby is the one that you are worried about. But when my kids were little, they tended to go to bed really early. So they were up pretty early. And then you don't have as much of a rush with them because maybe you have a whole hour to get them ready or whatever it is. So think about maybe the baby in particular might need an earlier bedtime so that getting them up at 6 or 6:30 or whatever the time it needs to be isn't a struggle, but more of a natural phenomenon for them.
Yeah, I had some questions about this scenario because obviously anytime you start new routines and she's going back to work after maternity leave, it's time to think about who's doing what and, why you're doing what you're doing. So just a couple questions to get clarity on. So first, if she is doing the afternoon pickup, what is involved in that? Is she then like done with work at that point and she's doing the after school shift with the kids and starting dinner and all that while her husband's still at work? Because if she is the afternoon parent, then it seems like he should be the morning parent, meaning that this is mostly his problem, not hers, right? If that is their split. And so I'm not saying with an infant that he could get everyone ready, especially if she is nursing, like she is going to be on the infant, but it could be that she is only doing the infant. And like she hands the baby fed and in his little cute onesie to her husband, who then is, has gotten the girls ready and gotten them out the door. So I don't know that she needs to be the one doing all this. Not saying it's going to be easy for him either, but he didn't write into us. So I don't know what his deal is. Maybe he has other ideas for how to make it happen. But, splitting it could be good in any case. If that she takes the baby, that just makes obvious sense. He takes the girls. I would also say it's going to be a pain. Like, there's no real way around this. And so I think having some idea, some fantasy that there is a version of getting 3 children out the door that is all butterflies and fairies and wonderfulness is just not realistic. And so but the thing about acknowledging that is that then you don't spend so much of your energy pursuing whatever hacks you think are going to make it easier for you. Like you just acknowledge that it's not going to be a fun necessarily part of the day, and you just deal with that, right? Like you say, okay, yes, we have to get out the door. We're not going to have some magical system where it's all great, but we do have to get out the door. And so let's just all deal with it. Because the problem when people decide that there must be some magical, wonderful approach that they just need to work to find is they start making decisions that then they lose their entire night to getting ready for the next day. So I'm not even just talking just like the lunches. I mean, there's the lunches, they pack everyone's bags for everything. It's all done. It's like, you spend an hour getting ready at night, but then you still have to get ready in the morning too. And you're still yelling and you're like unhappy about it because, you put out the unicorn pants and now she doesn't want to wear the unicorn pants or, whatever else happened. And then, you still have a scene in the morning and you didn't have your hour to relax at night because you were putting out the unicorn pants and now you are really unhappy. So if you accept that it is going to be slightly chaotic and unpleasant, maybe not unpleasant, but just not a smooth and well-oiled machine every day, then that allows you to enjoy some relaxed time at night, not thinking you should be doing everything on earth to prepare for the blizzard that is coming the next morning. And then the last thing I would suggest is possibly now that you have 3 children, you need to think about your childcare scenario. And one of the reasons we started employing a nanny once we had multiple children is because it is a lot of work to get everyone out the door. And having another person whose job it is to help make that happen can make your mornings feel far more smoother as you are preparing to go to work. So, yes, your daughters are in school, but maybe it would be beneficial for you to have, care for the baby. So that's always there, so that you have a nanny come in the morning, get the girls ready, take care of the baby during the day, pick the girls up at school, do, the hour or 2 after school with the 3 of them. You can come in, with somebody who started dinner already and, put the time in at work you need to and feel relaxed about it and have that support at home instead of having, you and your husband both have this crazed getting yourself and the kids ready and cutting your workday short in order to do the pickup. Maybe it would be time to think about that.
Fully agree with that if you're able to do it. I mean, it's life-changing and probably worth it if you're able to.
Worth it if you're able to. Yeah. Well, this has been Best of Both Worlds. Sarah has been interviewing Molly Beck about tech entrepreneurship. We will be back next week with more on making work and life fit together.
Thanks for listening. You can find me, Sarah, at theshoebox.com or at @the_shoebox on Instagram.
And you can find me, Laura, at lauravanderkam.com. This has been the Best of Both Worlds podcast. Please join us next time for more on making work and life work together.